Thank you so much, Nathan. It's a great honor for me to be introduced by you, a hero of the Jewish people. My friends, this is my first trip abroad out of Israel as chairman of Yad Vashem. And for many, that's not the reason that for me this visit is so significant. This visit is significant for me, first and foremost, on a personal level. 101 years ago, in this October, to be exact, 101 year minus 1 week, in Kiev, my father was born. And in a paradoxical way, what saved his life and his family's life, and it directly actually made my existence possible, was anti-Semitism. Because of anti-Semitism, the terrible pogroms of the 1919, 1920, 1921, the family had to flee Europe and to move to South America, to Argentina. A part of the family was more visionary. They moved to Eretz Israel, to the land of Israel. It took us a few decades to do also that. But for that reason, we forgot about those calamities in the early 20s, 100 years ago, because later obviously came a much terrible calamity, the Shoah. But for that reason, my family was very far from the shooting pits and the extermination camps of Europe during the Shoah. But this is also a very special visit for me as an individual, as an Israeli, as a Jew, with a deep historical consciousness. Every visit to Kiev is emotional for a person like me that lives Jewish history. On one hand, this is the city of the beautiful Podil synagogue, of the beautiful Brodsky synagogue, but it's also the city of Menachem Mendel Beilis. He was at the center of the most famous blood libel of the 20th century. This is a city today in which when you stroll in the city center, as I did yesterday evening, you see a picture in Hebrew saying, Dam achecha zoakim min ha'adama, the blood of our brothers cries from the earth, from the soil. And this is a city in which you leave the Hyatt Regency Hotel and immediately see a monument to Khmelnytsky, to Bogdan Khmelnytsky, a person that for many centuries was probably the most frightening name in Jewish history. So Kiev is very particular for me personally and for me as a Jew. But obviously since 1941 is the city of Babi Yar. From the days Chet and Tet B'Tishrei Tafshin Bet, the 8th and the 9th day of the Jewish month of Tishrei in Tafshin Bet, 5702 in the Jewish calendar. This is for a Jew like me, the city of Babi Yar. September 1941, in the eve of Yom Kippur, was a watershed moment, was a watershed month in the history of the Shoah. Yes, there were killings before September, but in September 1941, and in Babi Yar in particular, with the massacre of the Jews of Kiev, the Shoah became structuralized. Until then, it was a kind of trial and error process. In September, it became a machine. So rightfully, Babi Yar became, especially in the last years, a symbol of the Shoah, a par with Auschwitz, in spite of the fact that obviously in Auschwitz were much more Jews exterminated. And then came the attempt to make forget the victims, or at least the Jewishness of the victims. And that was despicable, that was heinous. But I must disagree with my friend, former President of Israel, Reuven Rivlin, that said 5 years ago at the 75th anniversary in the Ukrainian parliament that the Jews of Babi Yar were murdered twice, once by the Nazis and the second time by the Soviets in their attempt to make forget their victimhood. We cannot put those two in the same level. Yes, the Soviet attitude, the Soviet behavior was, as I said, despicable. We should condemn it outright and without any reservation. But the massacre of Babi Yar was done by the German Nazis. Fast forward to 2021. I, as chairman of Yad Vashem, as an Israeli, as a Jew, commend the attitude of the Ukrainian society, of the Ukrainian government, that endorses the work of my good friend Natan Sharansky as his colleagues, and is in establishing a memorial for Yad Vashem, an important memorial, a suitable memorial for Yad Vashem in the site of the massacre. It is important that in the post-Soviet era, in the independent Ukraine, Ukraine recognizes what happened in its territory and sees that as an inseparable part of its national history. We also are happy, glad to endorse the coming of Ukraine into the family of democratic states. And democracy requires that you look at your past with open eyes, with historical accuracy. When I became chairman of Yad Vashem, the first thing I told my colleagues, my staff, but also the minister of my government that appointed me, is that historical accuracy will be the only thing I will be committed to. Yad Vashem will not put historical accuracy at the service of nothing, not Israeli diplomatic requirements of anything else. And I believe that that is the way that Ukraine should behave too. And in order to forge a democratic future, also Ukraine has to be candid and sincere with its past. It is good, it is commendable that Ukraine takes the task of remembering the Jewish victims of Babi Yar. It is important also that Ukraine admits the part of some Ukrainians in that massacre. Only being completely candid, looking to your past in the eyes of your past, without closing your eyes today, will make Ukraine a full member, as I said, in the family of democratic nations, as it rightfully aspires. Yad Vashem, that I have the huge honor to head these days since a month ago, will be, Nathan and friends, your best partner. We will put all our knowledge, all our experience, all our goodwill in order to help your center, your foundation, to establish here in Babi Yar, in the city of Kiev, a suitable memorial for the almost 34,000 Jews that were massacred in those fateful days in September 28th, September 29th, 1941, the 8th day of Tishrei and the 9th day of Tishrei, 5702, in the eve of that terrible Yom Kippur in which Kiev was remained without Jews. Thank you so much.